Hi, this is David, and I wanted to do a video on milk before meat. Now, that sounds like a pretty benign statement. All of us have had babies and been babies, and certainly on a newborn baby, you don't give it a bite of steak, it'll choke. And that's exactly what happens in the Mormon church when they give you meat. You begin to choke mentally, spiritually, and financially. They use the cults always do this. They use the God loves you, and we want your money, and we're God. Cults always have these catchy phrases and benign, innocent kinds of comments that most ordinary human beings go, well, that's true. You do get milk before meat. And it is true. It is true. But once you give the baby meat, it doesn't regurgitate it and projectile vomit it. It's ready for the meat. Well, in the Mormon church, that phrase means we're not going to tell you the truth. We want you to develop faith and give us time to brainwash you. And then when you hear the meat from the internet, because we're never going to tell you, you'll say and be trained to go, they all hate us. It's a fight to the end. We're the 2,000 strapling warriors following the Leahona. And everybody hates us, and they shot Joseph because he brought back the gospel. Well, they shot Joseph because he burned the Nauvoo expositor to the ground, and he married 30 women, and 10 of them were already married, and 2 of them were 14-year-olds and a couple of 16-year-olds. That's why they tarred and feathered him. I never mentioned that to you, but there was a doctor with that group that was supposed to castrate him. And, you know, if there was a God, that would have happened. That's why I'm atheist. There's no God. He lucked out. He lucked out. So anyway, this milk before meat works well with cults because they don't tell you the whole truth or even the beginning of the truth. When the missionaries, it's been years since I've looked at the 6 lessons. That's how old I am. Nowadays, I think the missionaries just wing it by the Spirit. But back in the old days, they told you about Joseph Smith and having restored the gospel, and the angel that the plates disappeared, and you know, they basically tell you about the plan of salvation, that you can be with your family forever, and that's attractive to most human beings. Other than me, I don't want to be with my kids, most of them. I'm an apostate on purpose. Let them go to the celestial kingdom and mingle. I'll just go into outer darkness and do videos. That's all I want to do. I've come to my forte. So then they get a commitment from the investigator that they want to be baptized, and they get that commitment with pressure and with duress. And then they tell the investigator they have to commit to paying tithing. The Lord doesn't need the money because the Lord doesn't need money. But Monson does. His jet's $1,000 an hour for jet fuel. So he needs your money. So commit to us that you'll pay 10% of your gross income for the rest of your life. And we will baptize you. So people get baptized, and then they come into the church, and they're inundated now with all kinds of doctrine that they were never told. And the milk before meat, God, it sounds good. And it makes you feel warm inside. You know, I do want some milk before I go to bed, and I'll get meat tomorrow. Now, it's a gentle way for a cult to suck in new membership. Now, here's some, I'm not going to go through all of it because I get tired. I get tired. Here is some of the meat that the Mormon missionaries don't tell converts. And you know what? Many of you that are LDS that watch my videos, and it's becoming more and more, I can see that on my demographics, and the old men have reappeared on my demographics in Utah. So the bishops and the stake presidents are going, we got to get this guy, we got to get him. So anyway, Here's some of the meat. First of all, you will have no time for yourself. You will have so many children, and if you're a woman, you'll be doing nothing but changing diapers, birthing, and being in the kitchen, feeding everybody, and at night having sexual intercourse with your husband upon demand. He's the priesthood holder, and the little general is in charge in the bedroom. So they don't tell the girls that. And then they don't tell the women that are coming in, we really don't want you to get an education. We want you to go to BYU and find a return missionary as quick as you can, drop out of school, and then become the typical Mormon wife and be dependent upon your new husband. That's some of the meat. They don't tell you that. And in the Joseph Smith story, here's a few of the facts. They just left out. I don't know. Maybe they just forgot. Maybe they just forgot. Joseph Smith never had a job. He lived off the members of the church his whole life. He had a magic stone that he looked into the earth. Now, I've told you before in another video, looking into a stone is not clairvoyance. They're not very clear, and it's not a crystal. It's a stone. But it's a seer stone, a magic stone, and the seer name, I think, comes out of the Bible. So when he went to Emma Smith's father to ask for her hand, the father asked him what he did for a living, and Joseph said, I'm a treasure hunter. The father went berserk, and told Emma, I don't want you marrying this charlatan. The father saw it before they even got married, that he was a scam artist, a Ponzi scheme, a pyramid, and a liar and fraudulent. But Emma married the guy anyway. So they don't tell you that, okay? They don't tell you that Joseph Smith in Kirtland took all the Mormons' money and gave them monopoly money that was called the trust fund. What was that called? Oh God, it slips my mind right now. But anyway, he started his own monetary system. Well, when the members of the church couldn't buy anything with that stupid money he gave them, it pissed them off. So he gets on his horse and he's riding his butt out of town because the Mormons want their money back. Well, then he goes into Missouri and he pulls a couple shenanigans there. This guy is in jail and in court more than Charles Manson. This guy, the missionaries just, they forgot that he was in court. And in New York, he was convicted of a treasure hunting and fraudulent dealings with people, still trying the old tricks. And they gave him what was called leg bail. Now, I have a little bit of a law background, not much, but I never heard of leg bail. And I told you in one other video what that is Joseph, get on your legs and run as fast as you can, as far away from us as you can, or you will be in jail. You're on leg bail. And so, you know, he's in shape because he's already run out of Kirtland. Okay? Now, the missionaries just forget this stuff. They just forget these small details. Well, he gets to Nauvoo, and he decides there to build the mansion house, and it's kind of a quasi-hotel. I've been in the mansion house, and the upstairs is more like office area, and the downstairs is kind of a living area. Well, it had a bar in it, and he did serve alcohol, and it had a spittoon. I almost bought a spittoon the other day over at Desert Industries. I don't know why they had a spittoon at Desert Industries, but I thought that'd be a good thing, an antique to put in my house. And then when I told, and my little Filipino wife said, what is that? And when I told her, she was so disgusted. And she left Desert Industries. I wasn't allowed to buy it. I had to respect her and go, no spittoons in our house. Well, that's where the word of wisdom started. Everybody was chewing tobacco in the Manson house, and Emma had to clean that up. Well, that's where the word of wisdom began to evolve. In the mansion house, Joseph Smith decided that Jesus had appeared to him and told him to be polygamous. Now, most Mormons don't even know that. Well, I should say a lot of Mormons don't know that. The internet has spread that information much more in the last 10 years, but the investigator doesn't know that. And then when you say he really was quite fond of 14-year-old girls, eighth graders, um, the missionaries don't mention that. That he married two eighth graders and basically had sex with them and laid in bed and had intercourse. And basically, he was 38 years old. And Heber C. Kimball gave up Helen Mar Kimball, and then Nancy Winchester. She was involved there to some extent. And of course, he married a lot of more 16-year-old girls. But the missionaries, they don't talk and melt before meat. In other words, lies before half truths. Now, let's be fair, half truths before full truths. All right, and so now Emma caught Joseph in bed. Like, he didn't have enough sex. So Emma caught, I think it was Fanny Auger. Maybe she was the author of No Man Knows My History. But anyway, Joseph brought down two orphan girls. One was 15 and one was 16 from Canada. And they had about $8,000 trust fund. Well, Joseph not only took the trust fund, but he took both of those girls' virginity. He married the 15 and the 16, who were sisters. Now, you know, sisters having the same husband, that's a good idea to Mormons. The missionaries didn't mention that. They didn't mention that at all. Well, Nauvoo began to grow, and Joseph Smith's family began to grow, and Bennett, he was a doctor, and I think William Law might have been a doctor or an attorney who owned the Nauvoo Expositor. And there's some journals that clearly indicate by females of Nauvoo time that Bennett was an abortionist, that basically Joseph did have posterity, but they all ended up in the river there in Nauvoo. So anyway, Joseph became, after the Nauvoo Charter was allowed, with some trepidation from Governor Boggs, but he was kind to the Mormons and gave them a charter. So Joseph Smith became the mayor of Nauvoo, and he wanted his own army, a militia, so he invented that too, and he was the general. This guy's humble. This guy is not bipolar. He's not grandiose at all. I relate to him a little. I'd like to be a general. That'd be kind of fun. So he has this big hat and his sword beside him there, and he has all these Mormon guys dress up like they're in the army. So he's the mayor, he's the prophet, and he is the general. Now, you know, back sometime in the United States, there was a little bit of separation of church and state. But in Nauvoo, the church was the state, and Joseph was the king. Well, these shenanigans that Emma broomed another 16-year-old out of the mansion house that she caught Joseph in bed with, and then the two came down from Canada, and Helen Mar was there, and Nancy was there, and poor Emma's broom basically wore out, brooming the girls to the curb and trying to get away from her husband. So the mansion house was a gathering place. That's where I think the church was organized on April 6th upstairs in the mansion house. I think there's only 6 or 10 people there. But it was also the school of the prophets, and it was also the first place that Joseph, stealing the Masonic rituals, endowed a few people up in the mansion house. Well, things went from bad to worse because William Law and I think Bennett were both the owners of the Nauvoo Expositor, and it was a free enterprise paper. It was not owned by the church. Joseph was the mayor, and the word got out to Joseph the next day that they were going to print an article that told about, his leg bail, and screwing people in Kirtland, and tarring feathers, and almost got himself castrated, and sleeping with every woman in town. Well, Joseph had an image. Now, Mormons don't. Mormons never try to protect the image of the Mormon church. Image is everything to the Mormons. There's no substance to any of them. They're all image. That's all it is. They're weak-minded, self-esteem people who are damaged, that want to be bigger than they are. So they join, and they're called president and then counselor, and they have all these false titles that they never earn. So Joseph called, I believe it was a midnight city council meeting, which probably was rare. And most of the city council were the apostles of the church, more separation of church and state. Well, Joseph, just like any good state president that's trying to excommunicate somebody, got all of the high council members there of the city council to vote that the expositor was a public nuisance. See, Mormons will take the law and they'll twist it and turn it until it's a snake no one recognizes but the Mormons. So anyway, he ordered, I don't know if he was present, but he ordered the city council to go down and burn the Nauvoo expositor to the ground and throw out all the type. Years ago when I was in high school, I remember how typesetting went. I had a class and I was all typesetting then, and they broke the presses and bent all the type. Now, when Governor Boggs heard about that, he wasn't a happy camper. You know, the governor's got a city full of fanatical people that don't obey the law, and now their leader has burned a public newspaper to the ground trying to protect his shenanigans. And Joseph, by now, he has horses ready. It's his life. He's either in jail, or he's in court, or he's in bed with 14-year-olds. I mean, that's his whole life right there. And so he jumps on the horse and he's running out of town like a coward because he knows that the charges of the expositor are true. And of course, he excommunicated Law and Bennett for their supposed disloyalty for telling the truth. Well, he was talked out of riding out of town, and people made fun of him, and so he said, okay, I go like a lamb to the slaughter. He knew that because of what he'd done. He knows the kind of life he lives. He knows how many charges are against him, and he knows his luck has run out. So he goes to the Carthage jail there, and there's no telegraph, there's no TV, there's no satellite, there's no GPS. So the people that showed up in Carthage that ended up, he put a pistol through the door and killed one person and shot two others, seriously injuring them. Missionaries don't tell you that. And the missionaries don't tell you it was basically the members of the church that were all painted up that shot and killed him, and he fell out the window by the well, which I've been there and been by the well and didn't feel his spirit, but at least got to see where he died. The missionaries forget to tell you that. I don't know why. Is that meat? Well, I think it's poison. It's poison meat. Well, then Joseph is dead, and Brigham Young, he's kind of a guy that likes the girls too. And he said, well, gee, if Joseph has 30 and a couple of 14-year-olds, I think I should have 57 and at least a few 16-year-olds. So that was his prophecy to himself. And he basically lied to the federal government. Oh, I forgot to tell you, there's a little bit of Mitt Romney in Joseph Smith. He also ran for president. He was the mayor, the general, and the prophet, and now he's running for president of the United States. And if you don't believe there's a Mormon jihad, you're nuts. You have not been in the Mormon church long enough or know its history. Well, Brigham lied, and Wilford Woodruff finally took over and put a lie out to the federal government that said that they weren't practicing polygamy anymore, and they practiced it for another, 15 or 20 years, and then John Taylor came out and put out another manifesto and said, well, we were lying in the first one. Everyone knew that. That's Mormons. They were lying in the first one. They don't obey the law of the land. They obey their own law. And so he said, we're not getting married anymore. And I think he married two more wives. He was already polygamous, two more wives in the Salt Lake Temple after he told the government. Then no one ever mentioned as missionaries that Brigham Young ordered. Now, I've studied this now. I've spent 10 years on this, and I couldn't find a connection between Brigham Young and Mountain Meadows. I could not find it. Well, I did find it. He had a secretary down there with him, and I want to say Wilford Woodruff before he became prophet of the church. And Wilford was always taking notes what Brigham was saying and what he was doing. And I've seen the journal, and Brigham was standing in front of the monument where the Mormons killed 120 men, women, and children after they took their rifles away from them and just slaughtered them. And Brigham Young was standing in front of the stone there that's a monument, and he looked down to the stone, and it says, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord." Well, Brigham turned to his scribe, Wilford Woodruff, and it's in Wilford's journal on Brigham Young, that Brigham said to Wilford, "Vengeance is mine, and I've just had a little. That's enough for me." The Mormons, they're going to, oh, he's the devil. He's an apostate. That's not true. Well, it is true. Go look at that Wilford Woodruff's journal on that particular event, which you won't, because you'll find that I'm telling the truth and there's no excuse for it. So the missionaries don't tell you about Mountain Meadows. Well, then the Mormon Church hated the blacks. They still do. Romney wants to do everything he can to get that black man out of office. Believe me. Believe me. It is such an insult to have the blood of Cain, the dark-skinned Negro, the nigger in the White House. How did that happen? And Romney's coming to save all of the Aryan people from this guy killing the Constitution. Well, until 1978, the black people in the world could not go to a Mormon temple or could not hold the priesthood, and the Mormons have never come up with any kind of an explanation for that. Well, the IRS was all over the Mormon church on their 5013C and being discriminatory against blacks. So the Mormon church let the blacks have the priesthood. And now, after 200 years, there's one black guy in the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, and every time they sing, the cameraman hits him about 50 times, making the public think the choir is integrated. The other 200 faces are white and delightsome. Well, then ERA came out, and Sonia Johnson was a member of the church, and she said, wait a minute. How come the women get less money for the same work? And how come women don't get promoted? Well, the Mormon church went crazy. What's wrong with her coming with those questions? So they excommunicated that poor girl and then made fun of her and harassed her. And the Equal Rights Amendment was about to be passed by the United States, which the Mormons were against. So anyway, the Equal Rights passed. Sonia Johnson was humiliated and excommunicated, and the Mormon church went on. Well, then they come down to pretty much our day and age here, where the Mormon church has decided that Jesus appeared to them and told the Mormon prophets that he wanted a mall. He was the king of the universe and he owned every world, but no one ever did build him a mall. And so Hinckley, the Hinkster, who also, they don't tell you, bought $1 million false letter with the Mormons tithing, never got the money back. And the Lord did not reveal to him the salamander letter was a fake. Oh, the missionaries forgot to tell you that one too. Well, they've got now, the Mormons, a $5 billion, not M, B, billion-dollar mall down in Salt Lake City. They can't sell the condos, basically, if they're in the mall. They've split the prices in half to try to get people to come to buy their condos. And it's going to be a white elephant. Whether it takes the Mormon church under financially or not, I don't know. I don't think the missionaries told you that basically Beneficial Life Insurance Company, which was 150 or 60 years old, was subsidized in its last days with $500 million of the people's tithing money, and it went bankrupt. And all of the people that work for Beneficial Life have no job. I don't think that the missionaries tell the new converts, you're going to be a janitor. The Mormon church is pretty much out of money, and we don't want janitors being paid, so we're calling upon the members of the church to give them a new blessing of being a janitor. They don't tell. I don't know why they don't tell I think that's attractive. I think that if you're joining a church and they want you to clean toilets, hey, if you love Jesus and you love the Mormon prophet, clean the damn toilets. That's just common sense. So anyway, now we're down to the modern day of the janitorial staff. And now we are entered and we're coming through the issues of gay marriage. Now the Mormon church has just jumped up and down on this issue harder pretty much than any other issue. Their polygamy they're known for, and they can't live that down historically. And Warren Jeffs really ran a more accurate Mormon church than the modern Monson does. The FLDS follow Joseph Smith very closely. So anyway, the Mormon Church went to California and asked all of its members to donate money to hate the gays and to stop Proposition number 8. Well, that's still hung up in the courts and it's going back and forth, but 6 states since then have passed same-sex marriage. And the Mormons predicted by prophecy that the world would just come to an end. Well, I don't know about you, but I still have electricity and food out in the fridge, and my world has not come to an end. And I think it's an equal rights issue. It's not a sexual issue. Every human being ought to be able to marry any other human being that's willing to have them. So the milk before meat is lies before truth. It is half-truths and barely true until you come in. Then your whole life is centered around the Mormon church, and when you hear this stuff from people like me or get on the internet, you're already programmed to say, oh, it's not true. It's not true. And we don't look on the internet for things like that because the prophets have told us to stay off of there. So the milk before meat proposition and brainwashing is perfectly set for the Mormon church. And if you're looking to be, I had one girl that wrote me and said she canceled her baptism date because of my videos. It's not the purpose of my videos. If she wants to be a janitor and she can put up with all this baggage, then good Lord, get baptized, pay the money, and sing in the choir with the black guy. It doesn't affect me. I'm just telling you what I've learned in 50 years of being in that cult. And I'm not excommunicated. I'm not church disciplined. I'm just an intelligent person. I read the history. I'm a BYU graduate. I've had 2 kids on missions. I've got 2 BYU kids. I think I said that. Graduates, and I graduated, and I have almost 2 master's degrees. I have a full master's degree and one that is 4 units short. So this ain't my first rodeo, folks. This ain't my first rodeo. I've been in the Elders Quorum presidency. I've been in the stake presidency. I certainly have had my experience with the Mormon church. And when you hear the phrase, from the Mormons, milk before meat, you really should interpret that as half-truths before the real truth. You decide.